Hi everyone, thank you for attending this presentation. Really excited to have this talk. I am Mahsa. I'm founder of Collective Awakening, Breathwork facilitator, and energy healer, Reiki healer. And yeah, excited to have this talk. My mission at Collective Awakening is healing and elevating consciousness and helping others enlighten. And that's why I'm very excited about holotropic breathwork. Hi, we just started.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm originally from Iran. I came to this country, land of opportunity, for grad school, and yeah, my background is actually in computer science, so I'm very excited about research. And whenever, especially for this mystic and spiritual experiences, whenever there is research behind it, I get really excited. Even though there's, a lot of things are not explained by research yet. But I'm excited to talk about the research behind holotropic breathwork, the history behind it, how it came about, and how it can help people. Just before I get into the presentation, I just want to make an acknowledgement that I prepared the content of this with the help of my mentor. He's also a breathwork facilitator with Graph Legacy Program. I'm a Graph student. Graph is the person who developed holotropic breathwork. This presentation, the content of it is mainly from the book by Graph, which is called Holotropic Breathwork, A New Approach to Self-Exploration and Theory. It's by by Stan and Christina Graph, his wife. And yeah, in this presentation, I'm gonna go over what holotropic breathwork is, a little bit of the history of it, what are the key components of it, the dyadic relationship of a breather and sitter, the theoretical foundation of holotropic breathwork, physiological mechanisms, and therapeutic potentials in holotropic breathwork. So holotropic comes from Greek words of holo, means whole, and terpein, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which means moving towards something. So holotropic means moving towards wholeness. This term was introduced first by Dr. Graph, Stan, and his wife, Christina. They, who are the people behind developing holotropic breathwork for the first time. Graf is a MD PhD psychiatrist originally from Czech. He's practicing it in the US, and Christina is a psychotherapist. His wife also from America. And the way they actually came across holotropic breathwork, they were doing LSD therapy for their patients back in when it wasn't illegal. And in some sessions, they've noticed that sometimes some of their psychosis patients would fall out of the trip while they're in LSD, and they were intuitively hyperventilating and dropping back into their journeys. So they made that observation, but they didn't really start doing holotropic breathwork or hyperventilation until mid-70s, where it became illegal. They actually had in a workshop, they were talking about this, and there were a lot of interest around this, experimenting with hyperventilation. So they ended up experimenting with a small group of about 20 people to just hyperventilate to see what it does, and sure enough, it had the expected outcome. So that's how they started holotropic breathwork. But really, this is related to ancient practices, not like, recent discovery or development, but more like, this is related to ancient practices of shamanic rituals, Eastern meditation traditions. But in terms of holotropic breathwork session is a psychotherapeutic and self-exploration tool from transpersonal psychology. And the goal of these breathwork sessions is to facilitate healing and greater self-understanding by accessing the deeper layers of psyche and by experiencing the unexperienced. I'll get into that a little bit what I mean by experiencing the unexperienced. So the key components of holotropic breathwork. Holotropic breathwork sessions are usually roughly 3-hour sessions. where there's like a set and setting. Set is essentially the mindset, the intention of the breather before coming to the session. It could be, someone want to do self-discovery, more exploration, or for therapeutic reasons, or for curiosity, or their wife forced them, or something sexy to do these days, which are not, those last two are not necessarily the best mindset. Nevertheless, there are intentions, but it's always good to, regardless of what intentions that one have, to let go of the expectation and come with open mind and to experience it, because there's sometimes things that are still underlying things in our psyche that we may surface during the breathwork. So it's good to not set an expectation. And the setting is the workshop, the venue, and the facilitator. That's making the breathers feel welcoming and comfortable. And even before the session starts, like making phone calls or Zoom call to make sure, especially for newers, for people who are new to holotropic breathwork, to make sure if their concerns are addressed. Health form is important to make sure if someone doesn't have a specific condition that would not be good for them to do holotropic breathwork. For example, if someone is pregnant, definitely not recommended for them, or some other conditions. And then the actual venue, where how things are set up, if things are set up in a safe way, because as we get into it, this can be somatic and people can move around. Want to make sure that we don't have sharp objects, like heavy objects, something that people accidentally hit their heads, or if we have those, we just have everything very well to make sure that it's safe environment. And going to actual the breathwork session, so obviously breathing is the main component of breathwork. It is hyperventilation breathing pattern, where it could be shallow breathing, it could be deep breathing, so it could be like or like this. So it's different. It could be different pattern, and it could be different by individuals. Every journey of an individual could be also different, and it's not that people hyperventilate for the whole 3 hours. It's usually it starts that way until one drops in, and then the rest is just following your body and following your breath instead of trying to control it. And in fact, this actually happened in one of my breathwork sessions, as I was I barely even hyperventilated and dropped in, and I was just like following my body, dancing on the floor as I was on the mat with the music, and I was just like in it. And all of a sudden I've noticed that, I didn't even hyperventilate. So I started getting worried that I'm not doing this right, but I'm already like dropped in. So it's not, it could be different every time. The whole idea is dropping in, whether with hyperventilation, body movement, and then just like following your body. And music is another key component of holotropic breathwork. As you know, if you just like run and hyperventilate, you probably don't get into a holotropic state of mind. Or if you just have panic attack, you don't get to a holotropic state of mind. Music is another component where usually it starts with like dynamic, and then it gets into like intense drum, and then gradually calms down to like integrative calming music. So that way the breather gradually comes back to normal state of mind. And the other aspect is body work. So this experience can be somatic, as a lot of you probably know that we store the emotions, the energy of the emotions in our body, which I'll get into that in the follow-up slide. But during this breathwork sessions, we revisit some of our past memories, and we may have body movements that would basically, these are like stuck energies in our body that's an opportunity to release. And sometimes that actually, like some of the symptoms could intensify or could appear, some of the tensions could appear in some parts of the body. And the role of the facilitator is to provide resistance against that. Let's say if you're like in the stomach, you get tension, it provides resistance against that, and then for the breather to push against that resistance to release that energy. Or it could be simply as like holding hands. So for example, if one is experiencing some past trauma of, for example, grieving, when they didn't have anyone to support them, whether as a child or adult, but then by revisiting it and then requesting for, their hands to be hand to be held, or be be embraced, that could be very healing. That's experiencing the unexperienced. This would be an opportunity to heal this way. And integration is a crucial part of breathwork, holotropic breathwork sessions, which is people would want to make sense of their experience, their journey, and be able to incorporate it in their daily lives. And so the very first thing that happens after holotropic breathwork sessions is mandala drawing. The breathers are taken to, let's say, a room like this. They would be provided with some painting.
Just tap your screen.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine, sorry.
Come in. And
just keep going on.
the breather, so they would have the opportunity of expressing their journey through drawing, mandala drawing, or if clay is provided to create statue, or could be like magazines. You can cut photos and create photo collages. And this is just a way of, the purpose is not creating a beautiful art, although I've seen people who for the very first time create art. That yet has to happen to me. But yeah, it's amazing what people draw. But the idea is, again, it's just to make sense of it, to create visuals, which also helps in the future. If you have any insight and you want to kind of remember what's happened, you can just go back and remembering those visuals would help you, those visual memories help you bring those insights back. And then in addition to that, at the end of everyone's breathing, there will be a sharing circle, which everyone is welcome, not required, but welcome to share their experience, share their mandala. And the purpose of this sharing is having compassionate listeners in the circle listen to you, not to make comments, not to judge or give advice. It's not about this. It's about having compassionate listener to listen to your experience. And yeah. Now, importance of dyadic relationship of a breather and sitter. So holotropic breathwork sessions, when Christina and Stan first started it, everyone was breathing. All participants were breathing at the same time. But one time they had a workshop scheduled, and Stan was doing gardening, and he hurt his back, and he wasn't able to facilitate, help Christina to facilitate, and this was a big workshop that they needed to facilitate her. So they had to either cancel the workshop on a short notice or come up with some creative solution. So they decided, they chose the latter and came up with a creative solution of dividing the participants into half and pair them up. One would breathe, the other would sit, and then vice versa after 3 hours. This model worked out really good, that they continued this model since then. So the benefit of, so the way it works is that the breather and sitter at first have communication, talk about agreements, what, like sign language. For example, the breather says, if I need tissue, this is my sign language, water is this, if I need to go to the bathroom is this, if I need facilitator this, or whatever other language or signs that they come up with. Also, like, for example, a breather may not want to be touched, just like say that, or say, if I need to be touched, I would bring my hands close to you. And the sitter also have the opportunity to say, oh, I feel weird, I don't like to be touched, so like in this case we will call a facilitator. So these communications should happen in advance of the breathing session, and should be respected. The whole idea is that the sitter would be there to support the journey of the breather without interfering, without not following intuitions. Like in this type of work, neither the facilitator nor the sitter should not follow their intuitions to interfere with someone's journey and think that, oh, they may need help. The only thing is making sure a person is safe. So if someone is moving around because of they having somatic experience, the facilitator and sitter should make sure that there's enough padding and as much as possible not, touching that person, interfering with them, talking to them, let them have their journey while they're doing it safely. So the purpose is creating a safe and supportive space for the breather, and that allows the breather to go deeper instead of being worried about their surroundings, whether they're going to be safe and like not hitting their heads or their needs are met. For the sitter, when I first did sitting very, very first time, the idea of sitting there for 3 hours for someone, as much as I love to help someone, but just sitting there waiting something to happen was, it sounded a little difficult for me. Nevertheless, I did it. And at the end of that session, and I was hoping something happens, so it gets exciting. So I become important, I get to help someone. Like sitting there, it doesn't feel like I'm helping someone. So yeah, it's all about me, right? But at the end of the session, nothing happened. The breather was like the calmest breather I've ever seen. And at the end of the session, when people were sharing in the integration circle, some were talking about their experience as a sitter, and they were so blissful and grateful, and I was like, I could not resonate with that. But gradually, I started realizing the importance of this, how amazing it is to sit for someone, holding space for someone, and support them the way they need support, not the way I think I need to help them. And this is often, at least for me, I'm guilty of that. I don't know about others, but often I jump into help someone the way I think it should, they should be helped. Oh, it's my little sister. She's doing it wrong way. She's gonna hurt herself, even though she's 25 years old. Let me jump in and help them without, them really asking or needing. So it was actually, it's a great way of practicing that skill set, and not just within the breathwork session, but outside and bringing it, outside of the breathwork session, and having the active presence and compassion for someone. Also, witnessing, someone doing this deep work, and this process can be healing in terms of resonance. So all in all, I personally see a lot of benefits, and I'm hearing a lot of people that are benefiting from just sitting for somebody else. Now, the theoretical foundation of holotropic breathwork. So, Groff, Satish, and Maslow first, they realized by practicing traditional psychology, they're leaving out one important aspect of human, which is their spirit, human spirit and spirituality. So transpersonal psychology, which was first introduced by Groff, is the main framework within which holotropic breathwork operates, and it extends beyond the traditional psychology, and it takes into account the spiritual experiences and higher state of consciousness. According to Groff research, people, even before birth, a fetus can imprint memories and experiences that they have that would influence them in postnatal life. So these prenatal and postnatal memories, perinatal memories can be accessed and processed during holotropic breathwork session, and allowing individuals to address it and integrate it in those experiences. So based on Groff research, he came up with 4 metrics, and they call it BPMs. So BPM 1 is when the fetus is in mother's womb, when it's developing. Usually these are good experiences, but what Groff suggests is that environment and the experience of that can profoundly impact the fetus in their emerging consciousness, in their emotional framework. So for BPM 1, it can, these experiences can be impacted by the condition in the womb, the mother emotional well-being, and it can be negatively impacted if the mother, for example, is doing drug abuse or going through some very, very traumatic conditions such as war or chronic severe stress, things like that could impact, not occasional stress. Those wouldn't necessarily impact a fetus. Positive conditions could foster a sense of, for the postnatal life, sense of trust in life and security in life. And the adverse conditions could be causing the feeling of insecurity and anxiety in postnatal life for the fetus, for the adult or the born actual fetus. And then BPM2 is the onset of labor, is where the contractions happened and the fetus start feeling entrapped. It could be like feel like entrapment, helplessness, and due to the uterine contractions, the psychological impact of it could be that that would manifest later in life, could be like existential anxiety and depression, or feeling of pervasive feeling of trapped in difficult situations. And then BPM3 is the death rebirth experience struggle, is when the fetus is going through the birth canal, and that's where it involves a mixture of pain, struggle, often sense of near death. But it doesn't have to be, through natural birth. I was born with C-section, and I always thought, I don't have at least that trauma. I'm good. In one of my, so a while ago, I was going through some seemingly unpleasant life changes, and even though, I could see all these growing parts and like how great it is, like in my spiritual path and how I'm growing in that experience, I was getting to this dark spaces of helplessness and just kind of blank and not feeling like it felt really dark and scary, to be honest. And I decided to do a holotropic breathwork because that's my solution to everything these days. And so surprisingly, I actually had a memory of the time that my mother water broke. And I was feeling exact same way, like helplessness, like everything is changing and seems like to be unfavorable. And it was scary, and it was so scary that I didn't want to even visit that scene. But I sat with it. I mean, I was dropped in, and then that turned out that even if I didn't go through the birth canal and it seemed like, easy experience, it's still like, in certain situation, it has impact in my, adult life. And the experience of birth is BPM4. On BPM3, successful navigation of it could lead to resilience and capacity to tolerate and handle intense challenges and conditions in life. And the experience of birth. In going back to my journey, I, then going through that BPM3, then I was born, and this whole new life that I was given after going through that experience, which that whole revisiting it just got me out of that dark space in hopefully forever. I don't know. We'll see. But BPM4 is the experience of birth, where this represents the completion of birth, and usually this comes with pleasant and positive impact, like relief, liberation, or new beginning. Another aspect of holotropic breathwork is biographical traumas. Graph categorizes traumas into two categories of commission and omission. And essentially the idea is that trauma, the energy of it, the emotions come during trauma, is stored in the body unless it's released. And a lot of times, especially as children, even adults, and I used to be myself like that, trying to not, staying with the emotions to be strong, thinking that would make me stronger. But in fact, it would get back to me sometime in the future. So that energy is stored in the body. And during holotropic breathwork session, that's an opportunity, revisiting those traumas, even though it could be intense, but it actually releases the energy and it takes its power away from the breather. And the trauma of commission is the trauma that is happened to you or to the breather, where it shouldn't have happened. It could be, in an extreme case, it could be abuse, and it doesn't also need to be necessarily emotional. It could be car accidents, or it could be a surgery, or it could be witnessing somebody else's trauma. That could be also traumatizing for people, especially as children. And trauma of omission is a trauma where something that should have been provided to the breather, to the person, wasn't provided to them. For example, having a negligent parent, or if you needed, having emotional support in a certain situation and wasn't provided, that could be, depending on the situation, traumatizing. And the impact of this trauma could be, psychological, of course, but also physical on the body, as we said. Like, when this energy is stored in the body for an extended period of time, it can manifest itself as diseases, chronic conditions, and so forth. So doing holotropic breathwork give an opportunity for the breather to revisit, if it comes up, of course, revisit some of their past traumas, either the BPM during perinatal life or postnatal life, to experience the unexperienced. This time, having an opportunity, let's say if we were like 2 years old, or in BPM 3, when we weren't in, if we get into flight or fight mode, for example, and we never got to release that energy, this would be an opportunity to revisit it and release the energy. So that's why breathers are encouraged to have body movements if it comes, not just like making it up, but if the body feels like it needs to move, they're encouraged, or if they need to release that energy through sound or other ways, they're encouraged to do that. Self-healing intelligence, the core belief in holotropic breathwork is that we all have self-healing intelligence. And even Groff didn't call himself a healer, but providing a safe environment for people to access their own self-healing intelligence, or inner healer, by entering the holotropic state. The coex is another thing where some of the experiences that it could be related to different layers of, for example, it could be related to BPM, it could be related to also biographical trauma. There was, for example, one of the breathers in one of Groff's breathwork workshops had chronic shoulder pain, and during a breathwork session, he visited some past life trauma of war, and where he got injured in his shoulder, and also he experienced some other trauma during birth in this life, where his shoulder got affected. And then after experiencing that, even though the intense pain came during the breathwork session, it was all released after that. So sometimes symptoms could intensify during the breathwork session, but it could be released. Also, like having a facilitator who's trained and can do body work during the session could also help with the release. Physiological mechanisms in holotropic breathwork. So hyperventilation, as we discussed, usually breathwork session starts with rapid breathing, at least momentarily. So you may think that, we're breathing faster, so we get more oxygen in our blood, but what happens is that we get more air and oxygen in our lung, but then the CO2 as a result decreases, and then that actually, eliminating carbon dioxide, causes the alkalinity in the blood to go up, which then, when hemoglobin binds less oxygen when in alkaline pH balance, which causes, so we don't actually end up having more oxygen in our blood. Some parts of the body, including brain, could have different respond to rapid breathing pattern in terms of vasoconstriction, where the blood vessels would get constricted and the blood pressure would go up. But none of these response are mandatory, as Groff saw in his research and in many holotropic breathwork sessions that they had. But if vasoconstriction happens, depending on what organ it shows, which organ it shows and the intensity of it, seems like it's related to that individual's, how these organs were involved in that trauma that happened to that specific individual. So it's not universal, and it doesn't necessarily to even happen. And if they, by visiting that trauma and working through the emotions during the session, that usually that constriction would go away. The neurological effect of it. So all these things also depend on the type of breathing involved. So, for example, if you breathe fast or deep breathing or shallow breathing when you're doing hyperventilation could have different effects. But nevertheless, it's really difficult to really measure and understand like what exactly physiologically happened to the body to get into holotropic state of mind. It requires an array of laboratory experiments and examination, and it's very complex. But if we take all these into account, the condition of people in holotropic state, while they're in holotropic breathwork session, is similar to people in high altitude. Because the air is thin in high altitude, there's less oxygen, and as a result, also less CO2. People breathe faster, and as we know, people who live in extreme altitude are usually known for, or cultures are known for their advanced spirituality, like Himalayan yogis, Peruvian Incas, and these are basically what happens is that during that condition there's like an inhibition of cortical functions, which intensifies the activity in archaic part of the brain, which make unconscious process more available. These are all the, again, like there's still a lot of research need to be done around this. But also there's another factor is that when people live in high altitude, they get adapted to that by, for example, more production of red blood cells. And so the situation of the condition of holotropic state of mind is not quite comparable to people who live in high altitude, but maybe people who are there for a short period of time. And the consciousness effect of this. So again, it's really hard to understand what happens physiologically, and it's maybe because the body goes through very high stress situation. It gets into this is kind of comparable to near-death experience, or when people are on LSD or other psychedelic medicines, and it's trying to see what happens to the brain that we have this kind of mystic experiences is really hard. And as Aldous Huxley said after experiencing with mescaline and LSD 25, is that the brain, it's not possible that our brain is actually creating these experiences for us. Rather, the brain works as a reducing valve that was shielding us from that connection to the infinitely larger cosmic input. And concepts such as memory without a material substrates bring important support for Huxley's idea and make it increasingly possible. The memory without a material substrates were introduced by von Forster, Sheldrake, and Laszlo's. Potential therapeutic benefits of holotropic breathwork. Healing trauma, as we discussed in holotropic breathwork sessions, breathers would visit past traumas potentially, and that's the opportunity for them to experience the unexperienced, meaning that they weren't able to respond properly to that trauma at the time that it happened. This is an opportunity for them to respond and release the stored energy in their body. As a result, it can also help with psychosomatic symptoms that manifest as disease, such as asthma, chronic pain, chronic constipation. Could also bring shift on personality, worldview, hierarchical values, as individuals would feel connected to the nature, to one another, and feeling of oneness with one another. And also could potentially heal cultural and historical wounds for the breather, for example, if they have family or ancestral wounds or transgenerational traumas. if you're interested in learning more, highly recommend Holotropic Breathwork, a new approach to self-exploration and therapy by Stan and Christina Groff. This book is great as it goes over the details of the topics that we discuss in this presentation and more. It also comes in audio version. I don't get paid if you purchase that, but highly recommend it. It's a great source. You can also check out our website or Instagram and Facebook page where I put educational material as well as guided meditations. The meditations are primarily designed to connect with feelings, and through meditation and different kinds of breath work, releasing the energy of it that's stored in the body. Also have monthly soulful breathwork retreats. These are usually 2 days with the option of having just one day. The one day would be breathwork and the mandala drawing and integration circle, but the second day, Sunday, is fully integration and also connecting to the community. One of my goals is creating soulful community where people can connect and share their experience, make sense of it. And this is very personal to me. As I was going through my spiritual awakening journey, I felt really alone and nothing made sense, and I couldn't even talk to anyone that I knew because it all sounded crazy. Mm-hmm. So eventually I found I was lucky enough to find some connections and be able to create a community. But I believe that having community is powerful, and I love what you do, Brian, here. So I'm just telling you. Yeah. So the Sunday would be on Sunday during the retreats. Half a day would be integration with the group. Would be hiking and meditation, and then we do in summertime when the weather is good, go to the beach. So that way we connect to the community. Any question? Is everyone sleeping?
Well, I was curious about, let me see if I can remember, it was back at this is kind of silly, but when you were talking about hyperventilating at the beginning and then dropping in, do you have any sense of is there an average of how long it takes, or is it kind of all over the map how long it takes to drop in? And also, is that something that do you think the more you practice it, the faster you drop into that state?
So it depends. Usually on average, about 15 minutes. If you're not dropping in, it's good to call a facilitator to help you. Usually it's not because you're not capable, it's maybe some mental blockage and or being so anxious. Resistance, or that could be the case. And for, yes, maybe the more you do it, it might get easier, but at the same time, it depends on your your mindset when you get into, and the setting, maybe you don't feel there is something in the environment that might be triggering to you. It all depends. But it's always good to get facilitators' help if you don't drop in after
I was surprised though, because I had it in my mind that holotropic breathwork was literally 3 hours of just that super intense level of breathing, and so then I was
no, that would be too much.
But a little intense.
No, it's not the whole 3 hours.
Yeah. A lot of information.
Yeah. I mean, it could, again, the rest. I've had sessions where only at the beginning I hyperventilated for maybe 2 minutes or less, and then I was breathing normally. There were sessions that it took me a little longer to drop in, and then normal breathing, and then again hyperventilation, and then so it just depends. So that's one thing. When we during these breathwork sessions, we don't really guide people or tell them how to breathe. It's just at the beginning to get them started, and only if someone cannot drop in after a while, then help them, guiding them through so they can feel relaxed and drop in.
Yeah. And is there something in particular that is happening in the whole space or the facilitation process that is triggering these the BPMs, these sorts of memories, or is this just something that our bodies and minds naturally do when we go into this space?
Yeah, it's mainly our bodies and what are some of the things underlying things in our psyche. It's again the set of the mindset. If you set an intention, from my experience, you usually those intentions are usually visited, answered. But you know, sometimes some things could also come up, which happened to me a lot, that I wasn't even planning on visiting or knowing of existence of it in me. So that could happen. But, you know, again, the setting is also important. That's why it's important not to have a lot of, you know, we don't want to interfere with someone's, the breather's journey at all. That's why the facilitators should not, you know, during the 3 hour, we wouldn't talk loud. You know, everything, if people like the sitter or facilitator need to move around, it has to be all done quietly, and then, you know, supporting the breather but not interfering with their journey. That, and also the music, you know, all that has impact. Yeah.
So, and it's super common now for when you're doing work with plant medicines to do like some pre-work prior to help establish the set with other folks, or with people who are about to breathe, or sorry, are about to take plant medicines. Is there a proxy here? Like, do you ever work as a facilitator, therapist, or as a healer, like with somebody prior to help them establish the set?
So you were saying like combining them?
If you don't mind, just because the microphone's up here, if you just repeat his question.
Oh.
That like kind of your summary of the question.
Sorry, I was just trying to understand the question. I'll repeat it. So do you mean that having, starting with holotropic breathwork and then using plant medicine?
No, so like basically like, do you ever work with someone to establish this set prior to them doing holotropic breathwork so that they're like more, you know, like their intention is stronger?
Yes and no. So I'm going to repeat the question. Do I ever work with someone prior to the session to have their intention stronger? No, I don't, you know, work on anyone's intention. That's up to them. But yes, I do set up meetings with every single people to make sure their answer to is questioned, if they have any concerns. Also make sure in terms of like their health status, this is something right for them, or no, it's not the right thing to do at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Any other question?
Well, you didn't mention breath holds. Do you do breath holds in your...
That could happen too. But again, it's just, it's, you
So
know,
it's
your breathing
spontaneous
pattern.
threshold?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's breathing pattern that is, some people hold their breath, they get up like purple. Yeah, that's fine too. Yeah. But yeah, we don't, you know, guide them to hold their breath or anything. It's just, you know, however, just follow your body. That's the guidance. It's not a technique. That's the emphasis that Grof has. This breathing is not a technique. It's a pattern, and then you just follow your body.
If I recall, isn't his pattern, it's like a continuous no start or a stop at the top and bottom? Is that?
So you mean when it comes to breathing? No. So it's just like guiding how to start to drop in, and even that is, you know, we just give guidance at the beginning of the session to people, and then we start with a meditation where people start like being physically present, and like, you know, so that way they could be like focusing more on their breathing and then start dropping in. But no, there is no guidance, no instruction of now you start breathing this way or that way. No.
So even the hyperventilating, is that stage is happening unprompted, or that stage, that part is prompted, and then after that it's following your body?
So that part is prompted, meaning that, you know, after that meditation to get into your body, then the music starts, and then when the music starts, we just basically ask the breathers to start breathing like in a circular way. You can do it faster, or you can do it in deep or shallow, either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
And then, I mean, are you asking, you know, is the person that's observing asking what they're feeling in their body, or do they journal, or is it, if it's not guided, is it just guided at the beginning, dropping into a meditative state, and then just everybody's on their own journey?
Yeah. The journaling usually comes after the session, but people are welcomed, and I do carry my notebook next to me, because sometimes, you know, you get up, you just want to write down something. That's totally fine. But usually, like, part of the integration on, you know, the extended integration on the, you know, the shorter version of the integration, on the day of the breath work is mandala drawing and sharing circle. But then, on Sunday, the day after, one of the integrations we do is journaling and reading. And any other question?
Sorry, I'm looking at the last part of the self-healing intelligence, the COEX systems. What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this is essentially, like in simple way, is when let's say you have a symptom, for example, the shoulder pain that I was saying.
Sure.
It could be related to multiple different layers of these experiences, not like when these experiences are interconnected. Like, for example, you could have the shoulder pain could come from an experience in BPM3 and also like some trauma that happened in past life or some trauma that happened in current life.
Sure.
So that's like the idea. And
so the
during
integration of all the different layers potentially for that pain originates.
it could be, yeah. And then when you get into a holotropic breathwork session, it could move from one to another different states. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, lots. First, what does COEX stand for?
I should have wrote it down. I will send it to you. I don't
Great.
remember.
No
Sorry.
So I've done some literature review on this particular question, which is often I've heard people say, if you do breath work, you release DMT. And I understand where that position comes from, because at times it can feel, it felt like I took a couple grams of mushrooms, and I'm like, wow, this is unexpected. I'm floating through space. And I haven't seen any evidence. I don't know how someone would actually test that. And it, to me, doesn't seem, it seems like a tidy explanation, but not a necessary or evidence-based one to describe the phenomena, which you offered the language of reducing cortical inhibition. And as you were describing that, it made me just think through what are the different mechanisms by which cortical inhibition can occur. pH, the kind of adding stress to your body, just being entrained in rhythm, attention directed, meditative sort of component. All of these
And music.
the music, all these things cohere into shifting of our attention and where our brain state is resonating, and the dissipation of that energy, as is hypothesized with other sort of psychedelic effects, is perhaps that's where as we cohere in that state to make that work. That's not really a question. I was just wondering. I'm trying to chew on all this stuff because it's fascinating to have your own experiences with it. And then, hey, have you seen any actual research about DMT? Let me ask you that.
No, and according to Graph, I was trying to cover that, is it's really hard to measure all these things. And all these symptoms or not symptoms, the respond of body that I also described is not necessarily happening to everyone. It's not a requirement, and it's really hard to measure. And it's kind of trying to describe a psychedelic journey near death experience. It's just simply we don't have enough research and way to measure all these different.
Have they done PET scans of people on breathwork?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
but if you find anything, I would love to
see
that. Yeah.
Because I know that they've done PET scans and sort of whole brain electrical mappings for meditation. But I don't know yet I haven't seen that for breathwork to see how that goes. One other thing that I think Michelle mentioned was about the aspect of breathing to drop in, and then basically just you can, if you're dropped in, you can just stay there, and then if you feel yourself coming out, then to resume the breath.
You can start
is that kind of the that was the first time I had kind of heard that, especially in contrast to how we do it here, just
so these are variations of holotropic breathwork.
Sure.
So the holotropic breathwork, the way which is developed by Graf and being done by him, is it's not, again, the guidance is just at the beginning to get people into to drop in, but yes, If you fall out of it, for example, you get up, go to bathroom, and you can't easily get back, or you just like get out of it and you can't easily get back, you could start hyperventilating again. But it's not necessary. Sometimes you get out and then back in again without hyperventilation. Also, you may even be still in, but just intuitively, while you're already dropped in and breathing normally, may intuitively again hyperventilate. So there's no specific, again, it's not a technique. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just, I'll take care of that. So something just to double down, if you already haven't given your email, that'd be a great place to do it.
Yes.
Lasha's also, as you see it here, offering a retreat in the near future.
Yes, or if you want to scan this, it's actually this weekend and also September 7 and 8. And we're going to have one with Mountain Lotus, most probably in October.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Happy to hear.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. Nice to meet everyone and see.
And if you'd like to put this theoretical knowledge to practical application, we do have a breathwork tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.